Picture a book so mysterious that for over 600 years, scholars, cryptographers, and even wartime codebreakers have been utterly baffled by its contents. Its pages are filled with strange, looping script, a language no one has ever been able to decode, and bizarre illustrations of plants that don't exist, celestial maps of unknown constellations, and tiny naked women bathing in oddly interconnected tubes of green liquid. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a handwritten book that has defied explanation since it first surfaced in the early 15th century. Its very existence is a riddle wrapped in an enigma, a puzzle that has taunted some of the brightest minds in history. And to this day, no one knows who wrote it, what it says, or even why it was created. The story begins in 1912 when a Polish book dealer named Wilfred Voynich stumbled upon this peculiar manuscript in an Italian monastery. From the moment he laid eyes on it, he was captivated. The text was unlike anything he'd ever seen, flowing, elegant, yet completely indecipherable. The illustrations only deepened the mystery. Delicate drawings of unidentifiable herbs, astrological diagrams that didn't match any known system, and those eerie, otherworldly scenes that seemed to hint at something beyond human understanding. Voynich knew he'd found something extraordinary, but he had no idea just how relentless the mystery would prove to be. For more than a century now, the manuscript has resisted every attempt at translation. World War II codebreakers, fresh from cracking Nazi ciphers, took a crack at it and failed. Modern supercomputers, armed with algorithms capable of analyzing thousands of linguistic patterns in seconds, have come up empty. Even artificial intelligence trained on hundreds of languages can't make sense of its symbols. So what makes this book so impenetrable? Is it an elaborate hoax, a lost language, or something even stranger? In this video, we're diving deep into the labyrinth of the Voynich Manuscript, exploring its haunting history, the most compelling theories about its origins, and why, despite all our advances, it remains one of history's most tantalizing unsolved puzzles. Get ready, because by the end, you might just find yourself staring at its pages, wondering if you'll be the one to finally crack the code. Wilfred Voynich was no stranger to rare books. He'd built a career tracking down forgotten medieval manuscripts. But nothing could have prepared him for what he found in 1912, tucked away in the library of Villa Mondragon, an Italian Jesuit college. As he carefully turned the brittle pages of this unassuming codex, the strangeness of its contents must have sent a shiver down his spine. Here was a book that looked medieval, with its vellum pages and faded ink, yet every word was written in an alphabet no scholar recognized. The illustrations only deepened the mystery. Plants with twisted roots that didn't match any known species, intricate astronomical charts filled with unfamiliar stars, and those surreal, almost dreamlike scenes of women submerged in strange green pools. Voynich wasn't just holding a book, he was holding a centuries-old enigma. Experts estimated it had been created sometime in the early 15th century, likely in Europe, but beyond that, its origins were murky. The manuscript had passed through shadowy hands for generations before resurfacing in that Italian monastery. Some believed it once belonged to Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, a ruler obsessed with the occult who supposedly purchased it for 600 gold ducats, an astronomical sum at the time. Others whispered it was the work of Roger Bacon, the 13th century philosopher and alleged alchemist, though carbon dating later proved that impossible. What happened next reads like a detective story. Voynich, convinced he'd found something extraordinary, brought the manuscript to the world's attention. Almost overnight, it became a magnet for scholars, each more baffled than the last. Cryptographers pored over its symbols, searching for patterns. Botanists squinted at its unfamiliar flora, trying to match them to real plants. Historians traced its ownership through cryptic notes scribbled in its margins, uncovering a trail that led through royal courts, secret societies, and the private collections of eccentric aristocrats. Yet with every new clue, the mystery only deepened. Why would someone go to such lengths to create a book no one could read? Was it a secret alchemical text, an elaborate cipher, or something even more extraordinary? The Voynich Manuscript had survived wars, fires, and centuries of neglect, only to taunt the modern world with its impenetrable secrets. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a puzzle because of its text, its very physical form is a mystery in itself. Carefully crafted from over 200 pages of fine vellum, the book feels both ancient and oddly precise. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, placing it firmly in the early Renaissance. But what's truly baffling is the ink itself, a rich, dark pigment that has stubbornly resisted fading over 6 centuries. Modern analysis reveals it's likely an iron gall ink, common for the period, yet the way it clings to the page suggests a recipe or technique that defies typical medieval methods. Even the binding tells a story. The original cover is long gone, replaced by a limp vellum wrapper, as if the book itself has been stripped bare by time, its secrets locked stubbornly inside. Then there are the illustrations, images so strange they seem to belong to another world. Nearly every page is adorned with drawings that blur the line between botany and fantasy. Delicate curling plants stretch across the margins, their roots twisted like serpents, their leaves unlike anything in nature. Some sprout peculiar bulbs or jagged petals, while others drip with strange, unidentifiable fluids. Botanists have tried for decades to match them to real species, but not a single one corresponds to known flora. It's as if the artist was documenting a dream, or perhaps encoding something far more deliberate. But the plants are just the beginning. Nestled between these uncanny herbs are celestial charts that make astronomers pause. Zodiac wheels spiral with unfamiliar constellations, their stars arranged in patterns that don't match any historical record. One section, often called the astronomical or cosmological portion, spills across multiple fold-out pages, depicting what might be a swirling galaxy or an alchemist's vision of the heavens. And then there are the nymphs, dozens of tiny, nude female figures, some crowned with stars, others submerged in intricate networks of green-tinted tubes and basins. These bathing women scenes are among the manuscript's most haunting. Are they part of a medical treatise, a ritual, or something far more obscure? Every detail feels intentional, yet nothing aligns with the world as we know it. Even the script, elegant, fluid, and meticulously penned, adds to the enigma. The characters flow like Latin cursive but form no recognizable words. Some letters resemble medieval shorthand, others alchemical symbols, but together they defy every known linguistic pattern. And then there are the subtle marks only modern technology has revealed. Faint annotations in a different hand, possible page numbers in a later script, even places where the vellum was carefully repaired centuries ago, as if someone treasured this book too much to let it crumble. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a book, it's an artifact that refuses to fit into any category, not science, not art, not magic. Every attempt to explain its illustrations only deepens the mystery. Were they meant to deceive, to encode forbidden knowledge, or is there a logic to them that modern minds simply haven't grasped? One thing's certain, flipping through its pages feels less like reading and more like stepping through a doorway into a world where the rules we know don't apply. At the heart of the Voynich Manuscript's mystery lies its script, a swirling, hypnotic script that dances across the page like no other writing system on Earth. Experts have identified between 20 and 30 distinct characters, some resembling Latin letters, others mirroring medieval numerals, and a few that look utterly alien. These symbols form words that follow bizarre yet consistent patterns. Certain sequences repeat with unnatural frequency, almost like incantations, while others appear only once in the entire manuscript, a linguistic fingerprint that makes no sense in any known language. What's even stranger is how these words behave. In most languages, prefixes and suffixes alter a word's meaning. Think a run versus running or happiness versus unhappiness. But Voynichese, as scholars call it, defies these rules. Words often start with the same few characters, as if following some hidden formula, yet there's no clear grammar to explain their structure. Some researchers have noted that its word lengths and distributions resemble natural languages, while others argue its patterns are too rigid, more like a cipher or even a random assortment designed to mimic writing. This ambiguity has spawned countless theories. Could it be a lost language like Etruscan or Linear A, waiting for its Rosetta Stone? Some point to its repetitive word clusters as evidence of a shorthand system, perhaps used by medieval apothecaries or alchemists to conceal secret recipes. Others propose it's an elaborate cipher, a code so complex that even centuries of cryptanalysis can't crack it. One controversial study suggested the text might be glossolalia, or speaking in tongues, a stream of subconscious symbols never meant to convey meaning at all. Yet every theory hits a wall. Lost languages leave traces, loanwords, cultural references, or matching symbols in other texts. The Voynich script has none. Ciphers, no matter how clever, usually leave behind telltale patterns like repeated proper names or consistent word lengths. But Voynichese dances just outside these rules, teasing researchers with glimpses of order before dissolving back into chaos. Even statistical analysis, which can detect hidden patterns in everything from DNA to ancient scrolls, fails to classify it as either language or nonsense. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue lies in the manuscript's margins. Faint annotations in Latin script, likely added centuries later, hint that someone once believed the book held real knowledge. One note even attributes it to the 13th century scholar Albertus Magnus, though carbon dating proves otherwise. These scribbles suggest that at some point people thought the manuscript could be read, that its code wasn't just a hoax but a lock waiting for the right key. So where does that leave us with a script that defies every tool modern linguistics has thrown at it? A cipher no codebreaker, not even the team that cracked the Nazi enigma, could solve. A language without roots, or perhaps a brilliant fraud that's fooled generations. The letters stare back, silent and smug, as if daring us to keep trying. And we do, because somewhere in those curling, cryptic lines, there might just be a secret worth 6 centuries of searching. From the moment the Voynich manuscript entered the public eye, it became a magnet for codebreakers and scholars, each convinced they could unravel its secrets. Among the first to take up the challenge was John Dee, the infamous 16th century occultist and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. Dee, obsessed with hidden knowledge, reportedly believed the manuscript contained the lost writings of the mystic Roger Bacon. He spent years poring over its pages, searching for magical formulas or alchemical secrets, but in the end, even his deep grasp of esoteric symbols couldn't crack the code. By the 20th century, the manuscript had fallen into the hands of William Friedman, one of the greatest cryptanalysts of his time. Fresh from breaking Japan's purple cipher during World War II, Friedman assembled a team of elite codebreakers, the same minds that had outsmarted Axis encryption. They attacked the Voynich with every tool in their arsenal, from frequency analysis to pattern recognition. At first, optimism ran high. The text's repetitive word clusters suggested it might be a substitution cipher where symbols stand in for letters or words. But the deeper they dug, the more the manuscript resisted. The patterns they found led nowhere, like roads that twisted back on themselves. Even Friedman, a man who dedicated his life to solving the unsolvable, eventually admitted defeat. Medieval scholars weren't any luckier. Many believed the book was a coded herbal, a secret guide to medicinal plants, with its strange flora representing real species disguised to protect valuable knowledge. Others thought it an alchemical text, its illustrations hiding the secrets of the philosopher's stone. But no matter how they approached it, the manuscript refused to yield. Comparing its plants to known herbals only highlighted how bizarre they were. Attempts to match its star charts to historical astronomy came up empty. Even the idea that it might be a hoax stumbled. Carbon dating proved its age, and the sheer effort behind its creation made casual forgery seem unlikely. Every theory, no matter how promising, hit the same wall. The manuscript script doesn't behave like any known cipher. Its words lack the telltale repetitions of meaningful language, yet they're too structured to be random. Statistical analysis, which can usually distinguish between gibberish and coded text, returns inconclusive results. It's as if the Voynich exists in a linguistic uncanny valley, too coherent to dismiss, too alien to decipher. What makes these failures so fascinating isn't just the mystery itself, but the way it exposes the limits of human knowledge. Here's a book that has stumped Renaissance magicians, wartime codebreakers, and modern supercomputers alike. Each generation brings new tools, new theories, yet the manuscript remains as silent as ever. Maybe the answer isn't in the methods we've tried, but in some approach we haven't yet imagined, a key so strange that 6 centuries of searching still haven't turned it up. Could the Voynich Manuscript be one of history's most sophisticated hoaxes? Among the countless theories swirling around this enigmatic book, the idea that it's an elaborate forgery, crafted to deceive or profit, has gained surprising traction. Skeptics point to the manuscript's peculiarities as red flags. Take its so-called language. While it flows with the rhythm of a real script, no known alphabet or cipher system matches its symbols. Even more suspicious, the way certain words repeat with mechanical precision, as if someone were following a formula rather than expressing genuine thought. Then there's the art. While the illustrations appear painstakingly detailed, botanists can't identify a single plant as real. The celestial charts bear no resemblance to actual star maps of the period. And those haunting nymphs bathing in green liquid, they float in structures that defy both anatomy and physics. To critics, these aren't coded secrets, they're the work of a clever artist inventing a fantasy world. One name often tied to the hoax theory is Edward Kelly, a notorious 16th century alchemist and con artist. Kelly, who partnered with occultist John Dee, had a reputation for fabricating ancient texts to sell to gullible nobles. He claimed to communicate with angels through a mysterious language called Enochian, a script just as indecipherable as the Voynich's. Could Kelly have crafted the manuscript as a lucrative scam, playing on Renaissance Europe's obsession with hidden knowledge? Others suspect Roger Bacon, the medieval philosopher and early scientist. Though carbon dating disproves his authorship, some argue the book might be a later homage or forgery inspired by his work. Bacon's writings on cryptography and the occult made him a magnet for hoaxes, with fake texts often attributed to him long after his death. Yet the hoax theory isn't airtight. The manuscript's vellum and ink are period appropriate, and its binding shows centuries of wear. A forger would have needed staggering skill to age every detail so convincingly. Even the text's statistical patterns, while odd, don't align with known gibberish. And why go to such lengths for a prank? The labor involved: quills, pigments, vellum, was expensive and time-consuming. Whether it's a hoax or not, the Voynich Manuscript's resilience is undeniable. It's outlasted empires, baffled geniuses, and stubbornly refused to reveal its truth. And that's what makes it so irresistible, because if it is a fake, it's the most perfect one ever made, a lie so beautiful we're still desperate to believe it. The debate over the Voynich Manuscript's text isn't just about solving a puzzle, it's a clash of worldviews, a battle between those who see language as something organic and those who believe it can be engineered. On one side, linguists and historians argue that the script resembles a natural language, pointing to its intricate word structures and consistent patterns. They highlight how certain sequences repeat in ways that echo real grammar, like the ebb and flow of conversational speech. For them, the manuscript might hold a lost dialect, a forgotten tongue wiped out by war or time, its rules waiting to be rediscovered. Some even suggest it could be a pidgin, a hybrid of multiple languages mashed together by travelers or traders into something entirely new, but skeptics push back just as hard. If this were a real language, they argue, why does it share no roots with any known linguistic family? Why are its words so rigidly structured, lacking the quirks and irregularities that creep into human speech over centuries? Their answer, it's not a language at all, but a constructed cipher, a deliberate code meant to hide, not communicate. Think of it like an encrypted diary where symbols stand in for letters or concepts, scrambled to keep prying eyes at bay. Medieval monks and alchemists were notorious for this, crafting elaborate ciphers to protect secrets ranging from herbal remedies to heretical ideas. The Voynich could be their masterpiece, a lockbox of knowledge disguised as nonsense. Then there's the wildcard theory glossolalia. To some, the manuscript's flowing script resembles the ecstatic speaking in tongues found in certain mystical traditions. Imagine a scribe in a trance penning streams of subconscious thought, their hand moving without conscious control. The result wouldn't be code or language, but something raw and unprocessed, a verbal hallucination frozen on parchment. It's a tantalizing idea, especially given the era's fascination with divine revelation. But critics counter that glossolalia tends to be chaotic, while the Voynich's text shows eerie discipline, its symbols arranged with almost mathematical precision. What's fascinating is how modern tools have fueled both sides. Computer analysis reveals the script follows Zipf's law, a linguistic principle where the most common words in a language appear with predictable frequency. Proponents of the natural language theory seize on this as proof of authenticity. Yet the same programs also detect oddities like repetitive word pairs that feel more algorithmic than organic, giving cipher believers ammunition of their own. Even artificial intelligence, trained to recognize patterns across thousands of languages, throws up its hands, classifying the text as neither clearly real nor clearly fake. So where does that leave us, staring at a divide as wide as the centuries themselves? If it's a lost language, why has no other trace of it ever surfaced? If it's a cipher, why has no key ever been found? And if it's glossolalia, why does it feel so meticulously designed? The Voynich Manuscript refuses to fit neatly into any box, leaving us to wonder if the truth might be stranger than any theory, a secret so well hidden, it's become invisible even to the tools of the modern age. By the 21st century, the battle to decode the Voynich Manuscript had moved from cloistered libraries to high-powered computer labs. Scientists armed with algorithms and artificial intelligence took up the challenge, hoping that brute computational force could succeed where human brilliance had failed. Among them was Greg Kondrak, a computational linguist who approached the text with a simple but revolutionary idea. What if the manuscript wasn't a cipher at all, but a real language obscured by time? Kondrak's team fed the manuscript symbols into sophisticated language models, programs capable of dissecting thousands of linguistic patterns in seconds. What they found was startling. The text obeyed Zipf's law, a fundamental principle of human language where the frequency of word use follows a predictable curve. In English, for example, words like the and appear far more often than obscure terms. The Voynich script mirrored this pattern almost perfectly, suggesting it wasn't random gibberish but structured communication. Even more intriguing was the discovery of semantic networks, clusters of words that appeared together in ways resembling real grammar. Certain symbols frequently started or ended sentences, much like articles or prepositions. Others grouped like verbs and nouns, hinting at subjects and actions. When Kondrak's team compared these patterns to known languages, the closest match was Hebrew encoded through an alphagram, a cipher that rearranges letters. Their algorithm proposed a tentative translation for the manuscript's first line. she made recommendations to the priest, man of the house, and me and people. Yet skepticism lingered. While the statistical fingerprints of language were present, the proposed translations felt vague, even nonsensical. Hebrew experts pointed out inconsistencies in the letter mappings, and without a full key to verify the cipher, the results remained speculative. Other teams tried different approaches: neural networks trained on medieval texts, Bayesian analysis to predict symbol sequences, but each hit the same wall. The manuscript's patterns were just close enough to language to tease, but never close enough to confirm. What makes these modern efforts so fascinating isn't just their failure, but what they reveal about the limits of technology. Even our most advanced tools struggle with ambiguity. A computer can detect patterns but can't intuit meaning without context. It can compare frequencies but can't decipher intent. The Voynich Manuscript, with its tantalizing almost language, sits just beyond the reach of algorithms, as if the scribe anticipated future codebreakers and designed their work to resist not just human minds, but the machines that would one day try to solve it. And so the question lingers: are we staring at an elaborate lock with no key, or a mirror reflecting our own assumptions about what language should be? Every statistical clue pulls us deeper into the maze, promising answers that dissolve the moment we reach for them. The manuscript remains, as always, one step ahead. In 2018, a historian named Nicholas Gibbs made headlines with a bold claim he'd finally cracked the Voynich Manuscript. After years of study, Gibbs argued the book wasn't written in an unknown language or an elaborate cipher. Instead, he believed it was a coded women's health manual, originally penned in Hebrew and then disguised using a medieval shorthand system. His theory centered on the manuscript's peculiar illustrations, particularly the recurring images of nude women submerged in those eerie green baths. Gibbs suggested these weren't mystical symbols but medical diagrams depicting herbal remedies or therapeutic practices for conditions like fertility or childbirth. The key to his decoding, he claimed, lay in the abbreviations. Gibbs pointed to tiny, repetitive clusters of symbols, arguing they matched Latin shorthand for common phrases like "for the" or "with the." He proposed the text was a series of recipe-like instructions, where these abbreviations anchored the meaning, and the remaining symbols represented Hebrew words transliterated into the cipher's script. To prove his theory, Gibbs translated a handful of lines, producing fractured but tantalizing phrases like "boiled in water" or "for the woman's womb," seemingly aligning with the manuscript's imagery. At first glance, it sounded plausible. Hebrew was a language of scholarship and trade in medieval Europe, and women's health texts were often guarded secrets, passed down through coded or symbolic writing. The Voynich's illustrations, with their focus on female figures and botanical oddities, could easily fit this mold. But almost as soon as Gibbs went public, his theory unraveled under scrutiny. Linguists quickly dismantled his methodology, noting his translations were cherry-picked and inconsistent. The shorthand abbreviations he identified were common in Latin texts but had no clear connection to Hebrew grammar or syntax. Worse, his translations relied on guesswork, filling gaps with assumptions rather than systematic decoding. Critics also highlighted a glaring oversight. Gibbs couldn't explain why a Hebrew text would be transliterated into an entirely fictional script. If secrecy was the goal, why not use existing Hebrew ciphers, which were well documented in medieval cryptography? And why would a women's health manual, a genre typically practical and straightforward, require such an impenetrable disguise? Even the botanical illustrations, which Gibbs tied to herbal remedies, didn't match known medicinal plants of the period, leaving his theory without a solid foundation. The backlash was swift and decisive. Voynich researchers, from cryptographers to historians, dismissed Gibbs' claims as wishful thinking, a classic case of seeing patterns where none existed. Without a reproducible key or coherent system, his translations held no more weight than a modern-day Rorschach test. Yet, for all its flaws, the Hebrew code theory exposed something fascinating about the Voynich Manuscript's enduring grip on our imagination. It's a mirror reflecting back whatever framework we impose on it. To Gibbs, it was a medical text; to others, an alchemical treatise or an alien artifact. The truth, if it's ever found, might be simpler or stranger than any of us have dared to guess. In 2019, a researcher named Gerard Cheshire dropped a bombshell claim. He believed the Voynich Manuscript was written in a lost tongue called Proto-Romance, an early precursor to modern languages like Spanish and Italian. Cheshire's theory was bold. He argued the script wasn't a cipher or gibberish, but a phonetic representation of a colloquial dialect once spoken in medieval Mediterranean regions. According to him, the manuscript symbols weren't letters in the traditional sense, but a kind of primitive shorthand capturing the sounds of everyday speech. His proposed translations painted the text as a practical guide, perhaps a compendium of herbal remedies or women's health advice, written by nuns for their community. Cheshire's evidence hinged on linguistic patterns. He identified recurring symbols as vowel markers, suggesting they corresponded to sounds rather than strict letters. Some characters, he claimed, represented abbreviated prefixes or suffixes, mirroring how spoken language condenses over time. The manuscript's illustrations, he argued, reinforced this idea. Plants labeled with strange names might simply reflect regional nicknames lost to history, while those bathing nymphs could depict therapeutic rituals passed down orally. To prove his point, Cheshire offered translated snippets including phrases like "for the liver" and "mild laxative," aligning with the book's botanical themes. The reaction from scholars, a firestorm. Linguists dismantled his methodology, noting Proto-Romance wasn't a fully documented language but a theoretical reconstruction. No other texts written in this script existed, making Cheshire's translations impossible to verify. Critics also flagged glaring inconsistencies. His phonetic rules seemed to shift depending on the passage, and his translations often relied on creative leaps rather than systematic analysis. The most damning critique: if the manuscript were truly Proto-Romance, why did its words share no roots with later Romance languages despite their supposed lineage? But the backlash went deeper. Academics accused Cheshire of confirmation bias, picking data to fit his theory while ignoring contradictions. His work hadn't undergone peer review, yet it made headlines, a pattern all too familiar in Voynich lore. The allure of a solution often overshadows rigorous scholarship, and Cheshire's claims, however tantalizing, crumbled under scrutiny. What makes this theory fascinating isn't its validity, but what it reveals about our desperation to crack the code. Proto-Romance appeals because it offers a tidy answer, a lost language waiting to be rediscovered. Yet, like so many Voynich theories, it's a mirage, seductive from afar but evaporating under closer inspection. The manuscript, as always, remains one step ahead, its secrets intact. Among the Voynich Manuscript's most mesmerizing sections are its astrological and astronomical pages, sprawling, circular diagrams that seem to map out a cosmos unlike our own. These intricate wheels, filled with clusters of stars and strange symbols, look like zodiac charts at first glance, but something's deeply off. The constellations don't match any known system, and the zodiac signs, though familiar in name, are depicted in ways that defy tradition. Take Taurus, typically shown as a bull. In the Voynich, it's surrounded by tiny, naked figures swimming through segmented tubes. Gemini, usually twins, appears as two women holding stars, their bodies intertwined with leafy vines. It's as if the artist took medieval astrology and twisted it into something entirely new, or perhaps preserved a forgotten variation lost to time. These celestial diagrams aren't just decorative, they pulse with purpose. Some pages fold out into elaborate multi-panel spreads, suggesting they were meant for active use, like an astronomer's reference or an alchemist's guide. Radiating lines connect stars in patterns that resemble planetary orbits, but the geometry is all wrong. the angles don't align with actual celestial movements. One particularly baffling illustration shows a sunburst with 9 looping arms, each ending in a crescent moon. Is this a symbolic representation of cosmic harmony, a schematic for some long-lost ritual, or a failed attempt to model the heavens? The precision of the drafting suggests the creator wasn't doodling. They were encoding knowledge, whether real or imagined. Medieval cosmology was a tapestry of science, mysticism, and symbolism, and the Voynich leans hard into this blend. In the 15th century, astrology wasn't just superstition, it was a serious discipline guiding medicine, agriculture, and even politics. Lunar cycles dictated when to bleed a patient. Planetary alignments influenced herb harvesting. If the manuscript is an herbal or medical text, as some theories suggest, these astrological pages might hold the key to its organization. Certain plants were believed to draw power from specific stars or signs, and harvesting them under the right cosmic conditions was thought to amplify their effects. Could these diagrams be a celestial calendar marking optimal times to collect or prepare remedies? Yet the deeper you look, the more the mystery thickens. One section features a wheel divided into 30 segments, each containing a single nymph holding a star. Unlike traditional zodiacs with 12 signs, this structure suggests an alternative system, perhaps tied to lunar months or a lost stellar tradition. Even more puzzling are the rosettes pages, elaborate flower-like arrays of interconnected circles, some filled with castles, others with more bathing nymphs. Do they represent celestial spheres, a medieval vision of parallel worlds, or something else entirely? The lack of explanatory text turns each diagram into a riddle, its meaning hovering just out of reach. Theories about these pages range from the scholarly to the fantastical. Some researchers propose they're mnemonic devices, visual aids for memorizing complex astrological data. Others see them as alchemical blueprints, mapping transformations between earthly and celestial realms. A more controversial idea suggests they depict an alien-skied constellations as seen from another world or dimension. But the most compelling clue might lie in their imperfections. Unlike precise astronomical instruments of the era, these diagrams are riddled with errors, stars placed where they shouldn't be, orbits that defy physics. Were these mistakes deliberate obfuscations or traces of a cosmology so different from ours that we've yet to grasp its logic? What's undeniable is how these pages reflect the medieval mind's hunger to unite heaven and earth. In an age before telescopes, the cosmos was both map and metaphor, a mirror of human affairs and divine order. The Voynich Manuscript's celestial sections might not chart real stars, but they capture something just as valuable, a glimpse into how someone, 6 centuries ago, tried to make sense of the universe's grand design. Whether their work was science, art, or pure enigma, it remains a testament to humanity's endless quest to find meaning in the stars. Flip through the Voynich Manuscript's so-called herbal section, and you'll find yourself in a botanical wonderland that feels both familiar and utterly alien. Page after page bursts with lush illustrations of plants, each stem, leaf, and root rendered with astonishing detail, as if the artist had pressed real specimens onto the parchment. But here's the catch: not a single one matches any known species on Earth. Some have leaves shaped like serrated knives, others sport bulbous growths oozing mysterious fluids, and a few twist into impossible spirals, their veins pulsing with geometric precision. It's a garden of the unreal, and it's left scientists scratching their heads for centuries. Are these fantastical inventions, or could they be snapshots of a lost botanical world? Medieval herbals were more than just field guides, they were encyclopedias of life, blending medicine, magic, and mythology. Books like the Herbarium Apulae Platonici or De Materia Medica documented real plants alongside symbolic interpretations where a flower's shape might hint at its healing properties. The Voynich's illustrations follow this tradition, but with a bizarre twist. Take the infamous sunflower page. At first glance, it resembles the cheerful bloom we know, but closer inspection reveals jagged petals and a central disc divided into unnatural segments like a celestial clock. Another plant, dubbed the dragon tree by researchers, sprouts leaves that morph into serpentine tails, as if the artist couldn't decide between botany and bestiary. One compelling theory suggests these aren't pure fantasies, but coded representations of real plants, medieval X-rays that reveal hidden properties rather than literal forms. In this view, a root might be exaggerated to show its potency, or leaves distorted to symbolize their use in rituals. Parallels exist in other manuscripts. The Tacuinum sanatotes, for instance, stylized plants to reflect their humoral qualities like hot or dry. But the Voynich takes this symbolism to another level. Its plants often sprout duplicate roots or split stems, features that could signify alchemical processes or spiritual duality. Even their colors, vivid greens, deep blues, might encode meanings lost to time. Then there's the extinction argument. Earth's flora has undergone massive changes, especially after the Columbian Exchange reshaped ecosystems. Could the Voynich depict species wiped out by climate shifts or human activity? Some researchers point to the belladonna-like plant with its glossy black berries, eerily similar to deadly nightshade, except its leaves grow in inverted pairs, a trait no known nightshade exhibits. Others highlight the water lily page, where floating leaves connect via subterranean tubes, a feature reminiscent of hydraulic systems in certain Amazonian plants. These anomalies hint at a tantalizing possibility that the manuscript preserves a vanished botanical lexicon, a catalogue of flora erased by time or colonial exploitation. But skeptics push back hard. If these were real plants, why no traces in other records? Medieval herbalists were thorough. Unusual species would have been noted elsewhere, especially if they held medicinal value. And the manuscript's plants often defy basic biology. Some lack reproductive parts entirely, while others fuse traits from unrelated families, like a cactus crossed with a fern. This has led many to conclude they're deliberate fictions, perhaps serving as mnemonic devices for rituals or alchemical recipes. The zodiac-like labels accompanying some illustrations reinforce this idea, tying each plant to celestial forces rather than earthly soil. The debate boils down to a single, unanswerable question. Was the Voynich's creator documenting or inventing? Without the original cultural context, we're left groping in the dark, projecting our own frameworks onto these enigmatic pages. Every theory has its flaws, every interpretation its blind spots, but perhaps that's the point. The manuscript's herbal section isn't just a puzzle, it's a mirror reflecting our own longing to reconcile the knowable with the inexplicable. Whether it's a pharmacopoeia of forgotten species or a surrealist sketchbook, one thing's certain. These plants, real or imagined, have rooted themselves in history, growing wilder with each passing century. Deep within the Voynich Manuscript's most enigmatic section lies a sequence of illustrations so peculiar they've sparked debates for centuries. Dozens of nude female figures, often crowned with stars or wreathed in vines, submerged in intricate networks of green-tinted pools and tubes. These so-called nymphs float serenely in their strange aquatic chambers, some alone, others in groups, their bodies connected by labyrinthine channels that resemble veins or roots more than any natural waterway. The scenes teeter between scientific diagram and surreal dreamscape, leaving scholars divided. Are we looking at records of forgotten rituals, allegorical symbolism, or something far more obscure? One prevailing theory ties these images to medieval alchemy, where water represented the primal element of transformation. Alchemists believed in the bath of the philosophers, a metaphorical purification process where base metals were washed to achieve higher states. The green liquid enveloping the nymphs might symbolize the mysterious prima materia, the raw essence thought to underlie all creation. Their interconnected tubes could depict circulatory systems, echoing alchemical notions of cosmic harmony, the idea that everything in nature, from minerals to human bodies, shared hidden channels of energy. Some researchers even suggest the nymphs personify stages of the alchemical process, their poses and groupings mirroring steps in the quest for the philosopher's stone. But another lens focuses on fertility and healing. Medieval hydrotherapy was a respected practice, with baths prescribed for everything from arthritis to infertility. The manuscript's green pools might represent mineral-rich springs, believed to restore balance to the body's humors. The nymphs' orderly arrangements, some in concentric circles, others in rows, could trace therapeutic routines, their postures indicating specific movements or massages. Supporting this, certain marginalia resemble medieval gynecological texts, where women were depicted in curative baths for wandering womb syndrome, a once common diagnosis. Yet the Voynich's illustrations lack any accompanying text to confirm this, leaving the parallels frustratingly speculative. More controversially, some interpretations venture into the realm of the sacred. Comparisons have been drawn to the green man motif in European folklore, a vegetative deity symbolizing rebirth. The nymphs' leafy adornments and aquatic settings might depict an initiation rite, their bathing a metaphor for spiritual purification. Others note similarities to esoteric traditions like the Brides of the Well in Celtic myth, where water spirits guarded healing springs. Could the manuscript preserve fragments of a pagan ritual later suppressed by the Church? The absence of any overtly religious symbols complicates this idea, but the possibility lingers, tantalizingly out of reach. Then there's the biomechanical angle. The nymphs don't merely bathe, they are integrated into the pool's architecture, their limbs merging seamlessly with tubes and valves. This has led fringe theorists to propose the diagrams represent advanced or alien technology, with the green liquid as a kind of life-sustaining fluid. While this strays into speculative territory, it underscores the illustration's uncanny quality. They feel less like art and more like blueprints for a system we don't understand. What unites all these theories is their shared frustration. Unlike the herbal or astrological sections, the nymph pages offer no obvious hooks, no labels, no parallels in other manuscripts. Their power lies in their ambiguity, inviting us to project our own meanings onto their silent tableau. Whether they're alchemical allegories, medical records, or something else entirely, one thing's certain: these women, frozen in their emerald baths for 600 years, aren't giving up their secrets easily. Tucked between the Voynich Manuscript's cryptic herbal illustrations and celestial charts are pages that seem to pulse with purpose, dense blocks of text punctuated by tiny star-like symbols, each cluster hovering beside what might be ingredients or instructions. At first glance, these sections resemble medieval medical recipes, the kind found in apothecary manuals detailing remedies for everything from fevers to broken bones. But nothing in the Voynich is ever that simple. The recipes are written in the same unreadable script, their star annotations arranged in patterns that defy logic, as if the scribe was encoding not just words but layers of hidden meaning. Are we looking at practical pharmacology, a poisoner's handbook, or something far more metaphysical? Medieval medicine was a blend of science and superstition, where crushed pearls might be prescribed alongside prayer. Manuscripts like the Antediluvian Nicolai laid out precise formulas, with ingredients measured in drachms and scruples. The Voynich's pharmacological pages follow a similar visual rhythm, text broken into short paragraphs, each anchored by a star, but the details dissolve into mystery. Some stars are clustered in sevens, others in nines, echoing astrological associations where certain numbers held cosmic power. The accompanying ingredients include what might be plant names, but their symbols don't match any known herbal lexicon. One recurring glyph resembles a root, another a flower, yet their shapes are too stylized to identify. Even the directions, if that's what they are, lack the repetitive verbs found in real recipes: take, grind, boil. Instead, the text flows in a steady, almost incantatory rhythm, as if the words themselves were part of the cure. This ambiguity has led to wildly divergent theories. Historians of medicine point to the Circa Instans, a 12th century guide where plants were classified by planetary rulers, their harvesting time to celestial events. Could the Voynich's star annotations mark astrologically potent moments for gathering or administering remedies? Alchemy enthusiasts see something darker: ciphered formulas for elixirs or toxins, their true components disguised to protect secrets or evade persecution. After all, medieval poisoners often cloaked their work in riddles. The infamous Liber-Vaccae, a grimoire attributed to Plato, hid lethal recipes behind allegorical language. But the most tantalizing idea is that these pages aren't literal instructions at all. Some scholars argue the recipes are allegories for spiritual transformation, their ingredients representing virtues or vices, their stars mapping stages of enlightenment. The challenge is the absence of context. In known herbals, illustrations anchor the text: a drawing of mint next to a recipe for digestive aid. The Voynich offers no such clarity. Its pharmacological sections float untethered, their symbols refusing to align with any practical tradition. Modern spectroscopy has revealed faint underdrawings beneath some stars, suggesting the scribe planned these pages with meticulous care, yet their purpose remains opaque. Even the green-tinted pools from the nymph section seep into these pages, their tubes snaking into margins as if connecting the body to the cosmos. Perhaps the answer lies in the margins: faint pencil marks, likely added centuries after the manuscript's creation, cluster near certain stars. One note, barely legible, might read aqua, water, a tantalizing hint that someone long ago thought they glimpsed meaning here. But like everything in the Voynich, these traces lead nowhere concrete. The pharmacological pages remain a locked chest, their contents shimmering just beyond reach. Whether they hold life-saving tonics, deadly secrets, or keys to a forgotten philosophy, one thing's certain: their mystery is as potent as any medicine. The Voynich Manuscript's script dances across its pages with a rhythm both mesmerizing and maddening: 23 to 30 distinct characters, depending on how you count them, arranged in a flowing, almost musical cadence. Some symbols resemble familiar Latin letters like A or D, but twisted just enough to feel uncanny. Others are entirely alien: looping whorls, jagged ticks, or combinations that look like two letters fused at the stem. These ligatures, where characters merge seamlessly, add another layer of complexity. In Latin or Greek scripts, ligatures served practical purposes, speeding up handwriting or saving space. But in the Voynich, they seem deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if the scribe intended each fusion to carry hidden significance. Statistical analysis reveals tantalizing patterns. Certain symbols appear with striking regularity at the start of words, like the gallows characters, so named for their resemblance to tiny hangman scaffolds, which often dominate openings. Others, like the ubiquitous Eva M, cluster at word endings, mimicking suffixes in natural languages. Yet the manuscript's words defy conventional grammar. Many repeat the same 2 or 3 characters in slightly varied sequences, like kokti dal, a pattern more reminiscent of a chant than a sentence. This repetitive cadence has led some researchers to compare it to medieval Latin shorthand, where abbreviations condensed entire phrases into dense symbols. But unlike shorthand, which was designed for efficiency, the Voynich script feels ornamental, its curls and flourishes suggesting it was meant to be seen, not just decoded. Comparing it to known scripts only deepens the mystery. Its closest visual cousins might be the Tyanean notes, a Roman shorthand system, or the peculiar symbols used by early alchemists to denote substances like mercury or salt. Yet where those systems had clear rules, the Voynich script oscillates between order and chaos. Some pages feature rigid, almost mathematical repetition, while others sprawl with wild variation. The infamous herbal section, for instance, contains labels beneath each plant illustration, but the same plant might be tagged with entirely different words on separate pages, as if the scribe was working from multiple naming systems or deliberately obscuring connections. One theory suggests the script isn't an alphabet at all but a logographic system, where each symbol represents a whole word or concept like Chinese characters. This could explain why certain glyphs appear in isolation, floating like captions beside illustrations, but logograms typically number in the thousands, not dozens, and the Voynich's limited character set seems too small for such complexity. Another camp argues it's a syllabary, where symbols stand for syllables, a feature seen in ancient Cretan or Cypriot scripts. Yet syllabaries usually pair consonants and vowels predictably, while the Voynich's clusters resist such neat categorization. Then there's the cipher angle. Medieval cryptographers loved disguising texts with alphabets like the Caesar cipher, where letters shift positions in the alphabet. But the Voynich script symbol frequencies don't match any simple substitution. More sophisticated codes like the Cardan grill, where holes in a template reveal hidden messages, might explain the ligatures, but no physical overlay has ever aligned convincingly with the text. Even the concept of an alphabet might be misleading. Some symbols appear only in specific sections, as if the script changes dialects mid-manuscript, while others vanish entirely for pages before resurfacing unexpectedly. The most haunting possibility that the script isn't meant to be read linearly. Certain pages, like the rosettes, fold out, arranged text in circular bands spiraling inward like a labyrinth. Others cram paragraphs into tight blocks, their symbols packed so densely they resemble star charts or embroidery patterns. Could the writing be designed for a non-linear reading, a puzzle where meaning emerges from spatial relationships, not left-to-right sequencing? Medieval memory techniques often used visual layouts to encode information, with images and text arranged in grids or wheels. The Voynich might be less a book and more a mnemonic device, its script a trigger for knowledge stored in the reader's mind. But for all the theories, the script's true nature remains just out of reach. It teases with hints of structure, then slips away into chaos. Is it a language, a cipher, or an elaborate feint? The letters sit frozen on the page, their secrets intact, their mystery undimmed by 6 centuries of scrutiny. And so the puzzle endures not just in the symbols themselves, but in the stubborn human urge to believe that somewhere within those curls and strokes, there's a message waiting to be heard. Who could have crafted such an impenetrable puzzle? The Voynich Manuscript's origins are as shadowy as its contents, but by tracing the cultural currents of medieval Europe, we can glimpse a handful of likely suspects. One compelling candidate is the wandering scholar, a figure like the infamous John Dee, Elizabethan England's Renaissance magus. Dee's library brimmed with encrypted texts, and his obsession with angelic languages mirrors the Voynich's unearthly script. He even owned a cipher manuscript now lost to history, prompting speculation that the Voynich could be its enigmatic cousin. Then there's Roger Bacon, the 13th century Franciscan friar dubbed Dr. Mirabilis for his groundbreaking work in optics and alchemy. Though carbon dating disproves his direct authorship, the manuscript's blend of science and mysticism aligns perfectly with Bacon's reputation for clandestine experimentation. But perhaps the creator wasn't a lone genius. Medieval Europe thrived with secretive guilds, alchemists, herbalists, and astrologers who guarded their knowledge like dragon's gold. The manuscript's botanical and celestial imagery could point to an apothecary's circle, encrypting remedies to evade church scrutiny. Heretical groups like the Cathars, persecuted for their dualist beliefs, might have hidden dissident texts in plain sight using invented scripts. Even Jewish scholars, forced into coded communication during pogroms, developed elaborate cipher traditions that echo the Voynich's structure. The most tantalizing thread leads to Italy's Renaissance courts, where rulers like Emperor Rudolph II hoarded occult curiosities. Rudolph's court swirled with charlatans and visionaries, any of whom might have concocted the manuscript as a lucrative hoax. Or consider the forgotten women of medieval academia, nuns like Hildegard of Bingen, whose coded botanical writings hint at a parallel tradition of female scholarship. The Voynich's nymphs bathing in green liquid could symbolize lost midwifery knowledge suppressed by male-dominated institutions. Whoever they were, they left no fingerprints, only a book that refuses to confess its secrets. The author might have been a heretic, a savant, or a trickster, but their legacy is undeniable: 6 centuries of obsession and counting. For centuries, theories about the Voynich Manuscript's origins swung wildly from ancient alchemists to Renaissance forgers until science stepped in with a definitive clue. In 2009, a team of researchers at the University of Arizona's radiocarbon lab turned their attention to the manuscript's vellum pages. Using delicate samples snipped from the book's margins, they performed carbon dating, a technique that measures the decay of radioactive carbon isotopes to estimate an object's age. The results were unequivocal. The vellum was made between 1404 and 1438, placing the manuscript's creation squarely in the early 15th century. Suddenly, decades of speculation crumbled. The book wasn't a modern fake or a lost relic of antiquity. It was a genuine medieval artifact, crafted at a time when Europe teetered between the medieval and Renaissance worlds. This revelation slammed the door on some of the wilder hoax theories. Figures like Edward Kelly, the 16th century con artist, were ruled out. The manuscript predated him by over 100 years. Even Roger Bacon, the 13th century scholar long championed by hopeful cryptographers, was debunked. The vellum was simply too young. Yet instead of simplifying the mystery, the dating deepened it. If the manuscript wasn't a forgery, who in the early 15th century possessed the knowledge or eccentricity to produce such a baffling work? The vellum itself offered subtle hints. High quality and meticulously prepared, it suggested a wealthy patron or institution funded the project. The ink, too, matched period-appropriate iron gall recipes, but with peculiarities, traces of unusual minerals that hinted at a specific regional origin, perhaps northern Italy or the Habsburg courts where esoteric knowledge flourished. Even the quill strokes revealed a confident, practiced hand, someone fluent in the script's intricate symbols. This wasn't the work of an amateur doodler, it was the product of deliberate, painstaking effort. But carbon dating couldn't answer everything. While it confirmed when the vellum was made, it couldn't prove when the ink was applied, only that it matched the period. Skeptics seized on this gap, suggesting a clever forger could have used old parchment to fabricate the manuscript centuries later. Yet this theory strains credibility. The cost and effort of sourcing 600-year-old vellum, then replicating every nuance of 15th century ink and binding, would have been astronomical, all for a hoax with no contemporary buyer or mention. The real puzzle lies in the manuscript's isolation. Most medieval texts have siblings, copies, references, or responses, but the Voynich stands alone. No other works share its script, its botanical fantasies, or its celestial aberrations. Its carbon dating places it in a time of burgeoning scientific inquiry, when figures like Leonardo da Vinci were sketching flying machines and dissecting cadavers. Yet the manuscript's content feels unmoored from the era's intellectual currents, as if its creator operated in a secretive bubble, untouched by the Renaissance unfolding around them. Perhaps the most haunting implication of the carbon dating is what it says about human ingenuity. Here's a book that survived plagues, wars, and the march of centuries, only to outsmart the very technology meant to unravel it. Science could pin down its birth date but not its purpose, leaving us with the same tantalizing question. In an age of parchment and quills, who or what could have dreamed up something so far ahead of its time? The Voynich Manuscript isn't alone in its defiance of decryption. History is littered with texts that mock our attempts to read them. Take the Rohank Codex, a cryptic Hungarian tome discovered in the 19th century. Like the Voynich, its pages overflow with an unknown script and peculiar illustrations, battle scenes, religious symbols, and suns with human faces. Scholars have spent decades trying to crack its 200 symbols, proposing everything from Old Hungarian to a fabricated language. Yet where the Rohank symbols occasionally resemble runes or Sanskrit, offering faint linguistic footholds, Voynich's stands utterly isolated, its glyphs refusing to align with any known alphabet. Then there's the Dorabella cipher, a whimsical yet maddening puzzle left by composer Edward Elgar in 1897. Just 90 characters long, its looping symbols resemble musical notation or shorthand, a personal code meant for a single recipient's eyes. Elgar's playful spirit lingers in its curves. He once joked it was the solution to everything, but without his cipher key, the message remains locked. Unlike the Voynich, though, the Dorabella's brevity makes statistical analysis nearly impossible. The manuscript, with its thousands of words, teases researchers with just enough data to suggest patterns, but never enough to confirm them. What truly sets the Voynich apart is its hybrid nature. The Rohank and Dorabella are primarily textual, their illustrations secondary, but the Voynich intertwines word and image so tightly that each seems to annotate the other. Its botanical drawings aren't mere decorations, they're labeled with that unfathomable script, as if the plants and text are two halves of a single cipher. Even the zodiac pages fuse celestial diagrams with paragraphs of text, creating a feedback loop where symbols and stars might encode meaning jointly. This interdependence stymies codebreakers. In most cipher manuscripts, you can attack the text alone. With the Voynich, every decoding attempt must also account for the art's potential role, a wrinkle no other puzzle presents. Another key difference lies in the cultural context or lack thereof. The Rohank Codex's Christian imagery ties it to a specific religious milieu, offering clues about its purpose. The Dorabella's connection to Elgar roots it in Victorian eccentricity, but the Voynich floats untethered. Its stars don't match medieval astronomy, its plants defy botanical reality, and its language shares no DNA with any known tongue. It's as if the manuscript was designed not just to conceal information, but to exist outside any framework we might use to understand it. Perhaps that's why, after centuries, the Voynich still stands as the cipher king. Other encrypted texts yield partial solutions or historical breadcrumbs. The Rohank might be a devotional work, the Dorabella a love note, but the Voynich, it refuses even that much grace. Its resistance isn't just a quirk of complexity, it feels intentional, as if its creator built a labyrinth with no center, a puzzle meant to endure. And so it has. While other codes flicker in and out of academic interest, the Voynich burns steady, a perpetual flame in the dark forest of the unknown. Modern technology has peeled back layers of the Voynich manuscript that the naked eye could never see, revealing secrets hidden for centuries. Using advanced imaging techniques like X-ray fluorescence and multispectral analysis, researchers have uncovered faint traces of erased text, subtle changes in ink composition, and even early sketches beneath the vibrant illustrations. These ghostly remnants suggest the manuscript wasn't crafted in a single, flawless draft, but was instead revised, corrected, and perhaps even repurposed over time. One of the most startling discoveries came from multispectral imaging, which detects light wavelengths beyond the visible spectrum. Beneath the manuscript's colorful zodiac wheels, scientists found preliminary drawings, rough, hesitant lines suggesting the artist hesitated before committing to the final design. The nymphs bathing in green pools weren't always so perfectly placed. Some were originally sketched in different poses, their limbs adjusted to fit the intricate network of tubes. These revisions hint at a deliberate creative process where the author agonized over details rather than scribbling haphazardly. but the real bombshell emerged when researchers analyzed the ink. X-ray fluorescence revealed traces of iron, copper, and zinc in varying concentrations, indicating multiple batches of ink were used. Some pages showed signs of later additions, with symbols or annotations squeezed into margins long after the original text was dry. Most intriguing were the faint pencil marks barely visible under normal light that seemed to be guide notes for the scribe, like a modern rough draft. One such note, nestled near a peculiar plant illustration, appeared to read herba, Latin for herb, raising the tantalizing possibility that someone, centuries ago, understood, or thought they understood, what they were copying. These hidden layers complicate the manuscript's mystery rather than solve it. If the text was edited or corrected, was it a work in progress, a copy of an even older document? The presence of erased passages suggests the scribe might have made mistakes or deliberately obscured something, and the use of different inks could mean the manuscript was written in stages, perhaps by multiple hands. This challenges the hoax theory. Why would a forger go to such lengths to layer revisions into a fake? Yet for every revelation, new questions arise. The underdrawings don't resemble any known medieval artistic practice where precise sketches typically preceded final illustrations. Instead, they feel experimental, as if the creator was inventing as they went. And those ghostly pencil markings, they're too sparse to form a clear key, yet too intentional to dismiss as random scribbles. The technology that promised clarity has instead deepened the enigma, revealing a manuscript that's less a static artifact and more a living document, its secrets shifting with every new layer we uncover. What emerges is a portrait of an author, or authors deeply engaged in their work, refining and rethinking as they penned this strange tome. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a static puzzle, it's a conversation across time, one where we're only now beginning to hear the whispers hidden beneath its surface. And with each technological advance, we edge closer to understanding, only to find the manuscript has more to say. Could artificial intelligence finally unravel the Voynich Manuscript's secrets? Modern machine learning has already revolutionized the study of ancient texts, cracking codes that once seemed hopeless. Take the work of researchers at Google DeepMind, who trained neural networks to reconstruct damaged Greek inscriptions with staggering accuracy. Their system, named Pythia, learned to predict missing letters by analyzing patterns across thousands of known texts, a breakthrough that hints at what might be possible with the Voynich. Unlike human scholars limited by biases and fatigue, AI can process the manuscript symbols at inhuman scales, detecting subtle statistical quirks invisible to the naked eye. Recent successes offer glimmers of hope. In 2023, a team at the University of Kiel used deep learning to partially decipher the mysterious Proto-Elamite script, a 5,000-year-old writing system from ancient Iran. Their model identified numerical notations and commodity labels by cross-referencing symbols with archaeological context, a technique that could adapt to the Voynich's botanical or astrological sections. Even more promising was the 2022 decoding of Linear B's lesser-known cousin, Linear A, where AI pinpointed loanwords from Near Eastern languages, proving machine learning can spot linguistic echoes across millennia. If these scripts yielded to algorithmic pressure, why not the Voynich? The challenge lies in the manuscript's isolation. Most deciphered texts had anchors, bilingual inscriptions, cultural parallels, or related dialects. The Voynich floats in a vacuum, its script untethered to any known language family. But quantum computing might change the game. Where classical computers test possibilities sequentially, quantum machines evaluate multiple solutions simultaneously, a brute force approach ideal for navigating the manuscript's combinatorial labyrinth. Imagine a quantum algorithm testing every conceivable cipher key in seconds, or modeling hypothetical language structures too complex for traditional statistics. Startups like Quantinuum are already applying this to medieval cryptography, simulating molecular interactions to reverse engineer ink compositions, a technique that could trace the manuscript's origins through chemistry alone. Yet even cutting-edge tools face limitations. AI relies on training data, and the Voynich offers no Rosetta Stone to learn from. Without verified translations, neural networks risk hallucinating patterns, like the infamous case where an algorithm deciphered Ugaritic script only for scholars to realize it had memorized Wikipedia summaries. Quantum decryption, while powerful, might brute force a solution without explaining how it fits historical context. The real breakthrough may come from hybrid approaches. AI narrows the possibilities, quantum computing tests them, and human scholars interpret the results through medieval eyes. The stakes transcend one manuscript. Success would validate AI as a new lens for historical inquiry, while failure might reveal a deeper truth that some mysteries resist even the most advanced tools. The Voynich reminds us that language isn't just data, it's culture, intuition, and sometimes sheer stubborn enigma. As we arm ourselves with silicon and qubits, we're not just chasing a solution, we're testing the boundaries of how much the past can ever truly speak to us. The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just baffle scholars, it's become a magnet for conspiracy theories, each wilder than the last. Some claim it's an alien artifact, a cosmic encyclopedia left behind by extraterrestrials who visited medieval Earth. Proponents point to its uncanny botanical illustrations, arguing the plants resemble nothing on this planet because they're from another, the swirling script. A starfaring civilization's language far older than human writing systems. Even the zodiac pages get roped into this theory, with believers suggesting the distorted star maps depict constellations as seen from a distant world. Never mind that carbon dating places the vellum squarely in the 15th century. True believers insist the manuscript is a copy of an otherworldly original, carefully preserved by secretive initiates. Then there's the Illuminati angle. Secret society hunters trace the manuscript's ownership to Emperor Rudolf II, a Habsburg ruler obsessed with the occult, and insist it's a coded grimoire for elite alchemists. The green-tinted nymph pages, allegedly, they depict initiation rituals for a forgotten cabal, their bathing tubes symbolic of spiritual purification. These theories gained steam when the manuscript briefly surfaced in the library of the Jesuit Collegio Romano, feeding whispers of Vatican cover-ups. Never one to miss a good mystery, Dan Brown-style thrillers have woven the Voynich into plots about shadowy orders guarding ancient, dangerous knowledge, even though there's zero evidence linking it to real historical conspiracies. Pop culture, of course, has run with the mythos. In The X-Files, Mulder and Scully investigate the manuscript as a potential extraterrestrial communication, tying it to the show's lore of government-suppressed truths. Video games love it even more. The Assassin's Creed franchise features the manuscript as a precursor artifact, its indecipherable text holding blueprints for advanced technology lost to time. Even Indiana Jones knockoffs and supernatural TV shows like Warehouse 13 have snagged the Voynich as a go-to MacGuffin, its aura of impenetrability making it the perfect plot device. But perhaps the most bizarre twist is how the manuscript fuels modern occult movements. Online forums buzz with claims that decoding its symbols will unlock hidden powers or apocalyptic prophecies. Crypto enthusiasts, never ones to resist a puzzle, have even minted Voynich-themed NFTs, peddling digital fragments of the text as collectible keys to enlightenment. It's a far cry from academic conferences where linguists and historians still grapple with its origins, but that's the power of the Voynich. It's a blank canvas absorbing whatever fears or fantasies we project onto it. Whether it's aliens, ancient conspiracies, or Hollywood hijinks, the manuscript's greatest trick might be how effortlessly it transcends reality, becoming whatever we need it to be. Today, the Voynich Manuscript rests under careful guard in the climate-controlled vaults of Yale University's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library. This fortress of knowledge, with its translucent marble walls filtering soft light, is a fitting sanctuary for a book that spent centuries dodging decipherment. The Voynich treats the manuscript like the treasure it is, handled only by gloved specialists, stored in custom acid-free boxes and shielded from the degrading touch of sunlight. Yet in a beautiful twist of modern accessibility, you don't need a Yale ID or a letter of academic recommendation to study its secrets. Thanks to an ambitious digitization project, the entire manuscript lives online, its pages scanned in ultra-high resolution. Zoom in close enough to count the ink flecks on a 600-year-old Q, shaped like a question mark, or trace the faint pencil mark some hopeful annotator left in the margins centuries ago. This digital liberation has turned the Voynich into a democratized puzzle. Where once only elite scholars could request access, now anyone with Wi-Fi can join the hunt. Online forums buzz with amateur cryptographers comparing notes, while Reddit threads dissect the latest AI-driven decryption attempts. The Voynich scans are so detailed they've revealed subtleties invisible to the naked eye, like the way certain symbols were painstakingly corrected, their ink slightly darker, suggesting the scribe double-checked their work. Even the parchment itself tells stories under digital scrutiny. Follicle patterns from the animal skin used for vellum are visible, hinting at the medieval parchment maker's craft. Yale's openness contrasts sharply with the manuscript's earlier history of obscurity. For decades after Wilfrid Voynich's death, the book vanished into private collections, its pages glimpsed only by a privileged few. Now it's a collaborative project spanning continents. High school teachers assign the manuscript as a cryptography challenge, software engineers write scripts to analyze word frequency, and retirees with a passion for puzzles spend rainy afternoons sketching theories in notebooks. The Voynich even encourages this crowdsourced scholarship, hosting symposia where tenured professors and self-taught linguists debate side by side, but physical access hasn't been entirely sidelined. For those who make the pilgrimage to New Haven, the library occasionally displays the manuscript in curated exhibitions, letting visitors stand mere inches from the real thing, close enough to imagine the scribe's hand moving across the page, the quill scratching out symbols whose meaning still dances just beyond our grasp. Whether you're squinting at pixels on a screen or breathing in the faint, centuries-old scent of vellum in a reading room, the Voynich remains what it's always been, an open invitation to the most stubborn riddle in history. The quest to crack the Voynich Manuscript's code reads like a graveyard of brilliant minds, each convinced they'd found the key, only to watch their theories crumble under scrutiny. One of the earliest and most storied attempts came from William and Elizabeth Friedman, the legendary husband and wife code-breaking duo who'd broken Japanese ciphers during World War II. Fresh from their wartime triumphs, they turned their analytical prowess to the manuscript in the 1950s, certain their statistical methods could unravel its secrets. The Friedmans assembled a team of elite cryptographers, analyzing symbol frequencies and word patterns with tools that had cracked enemy codes. At first, progress seemed promising. They identified repeating clusters that resembled prefixes or suffixes in natural languages. But the deeper they dug, the more the manuscript resisted. The patterns dissolved like smoke, leaving them with gibberish. In the end, even the Friedmans admitted defeat, their final report concluding the script might be an artificial language deliberately designed to defy decryption. Their failure wasn't due to lack of skill, but the manuscript's eerie ability to mimic linguistic structure without ever committing to it. Then there was the infamous Michigan breakthrough of 1978, when botanist Hugh O'Neill made headlines claiming he'd identified real plants in the manuscript's illustrations. O'Neill argued the bizarre flora weren't fantasies but stylized depictions of New World species, suggesting the book might be a post-Columbian herbal. His star example, a page showing a plant with jagged leaves and red roots which he swore was a sunflower, a species unknown in Europe before Spanish explorers brought it back from the Americas. If true, this would date the manuscript to after 1492, rewriting its entire timeline. But carbon dating later debunked O'Neill's theory, proving the vellum predated Columbus by decades. The sunflower turned out to be another of the manuscript's inexplicable inventions, a warning against seeing what we want to see rather than what's actually there. Perhaps the most dramatic near breakthrough came in 2004, when Austrian researcher Andreas Skinner proposed the text wasn't language at all, but a form of medieval steganography, hidden messages encoded in the script's visual arrangement. Skinner's algorithm analyzed line lengths and symbol spacing, suggesting the real information lay not in the characters themselves, but in their physical placement like an invisible grid. For a moment, it seemed plausible until linguists pointed out that 15th century steganography relied on far cruder techniques, like invisible ink or needle pricks in parchment. The manuscript's precision was light, years ahead of known medieval methods, making Skinner's theory a tantalizing dead end. Amateur sleuths have flooded the field with bold claims, too. In 2014, self-taught linguist Stephen Bax announced he decoded 10 words by matching symbols to adjacent illustrations, proposing the text was a mix of Greek and Arabic. His translations, like juniper beside a twisting plant, made intuitive sense until experts noted he'd cherry-picked symbols while ignoring thousands of others that didn't fit. Bax's work highlighted a recurring trap: the human brain's uncanny ability to find patterns even where none exist. What unites these failures isn't a lack of ingenuity, but the manuscript's almost supernatural resistance to categorization. Every approach, statistical, botanical, cryptographic, hits the same wall. The text behaves just enough like language to keep us chasing it, but never enough to be caught. It's a reminder that some puzzles aren't just waiting to be solved. They're designed to outlast us, and so the Voynich endures not as a riddle to be answered, but as a mirror reflecting the limits of human curiosity itself. The Voynich Manuscript isn't just a relic gathering dust in a library, it's a living challenge, a puzzle that refuses to fade into history. In an age where algorithms can predict our thoughts and satellites map every inch of the globe, this 600-year-old book remains a humbling reminder that some mysteries still outwit the brightest minds. Its endurance speaks to something deeper than curiosity. It taps into our collective fascination with the unsolvable, the idea that there are truths lurking just beyond our grasp. Like the allure of a black hole or the depths of the ocean, the manuscript represents a frontier, a place where questions outnumber answers, and that's precisely why it captivates us. It's not just about cracking a code, it's about the thrill of the chase, the tantalizing possibility that the next breakthrough could rewrite history. What makes the Voynich truly unique is how it bridges disciplines, drawing in linguists, historians, botanists, and even computer scientists. A single page might send a cryptographer hunting for cipher patterns, while an astronomer puzzles over its unidentifiable star charts, and a botanist struggles to classify plants that defy taxonomy. This interdisciplinary tug-of-war has sparked unlikely collaborations, pushing researchers to think beyond their specialties. In a world where academia often operates in silos, the manuscript forces experts to cross boundaries, blending medieval history with cutting-edge machine learning. It's become a laboratory for innovation, a test case for new decryption techniques that could someday unlock other historical enigmas, from lost languages to forgotten scientific treatises. But the stakes are higher than academic bragging rights. If solved, the Voynich could shatter assumptions about medieval knowledge. What if it's not a hoax but a legitimate scientific or medicinal text, documenting remedies or cosmological ideas lost to time? Imagine uncovering a 15th century understanding of botany so advanced it recognized plant properties modern science has only recently verified. Or worse, what if it reveals nothing at all? The possibility that the manuscript might be an elaborate medieval art project, a prank meant to baffle future generations, is its own kind of revelation. It would force us to confront how easily we project meaning onto the ambiguous, how desperately we want the past to speak to us. Beyond academia, the manuscript has seeped into popular culture as a symbol of enduring mystery. Its name dropped in thrillers and sci-fi as shorthand for the ultimate unsolvable puzzle, a MacGuffin that promises world-altering secrets. This cultural footprint proves its power isn't just in its pages but in what it represents, the human love affair with the unknown. In a world increasingly defined by data and certainty, the Voynich is a rare artifact that still guards its secrets, a reminder that not everything yields to logic or technology. Perhaps its greatest lesson is about patience. For 6 centuries, it's resisted armies of thinkers, from Renaissance magicians to Nobel laureates. Yet we keep trying because the manuscript is more than a book, it's a mirror. It reflects our persistence, our hubris, and our boundless curiosity. Whether it's ever decoded or not, its legacy is secure, a testament to the idea that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved quickly, but to be pondered, debated, and passed down as a challenge to the next generation of seekers. And in that way, the Voynich Manuscript isn't just a relic, it's a conversation across time, one that's far from over. Centuries after its creation, the Voynich Manuscript remains one of history's most tantalizing riddles, a perfect storm of art, science, and secrecy. Its pages are a paradox, precise yet unknowable, methodical yet alien, as if the creator distilled an entire world view into symbols we can't decipher. What makes it endure isn't just its mystery, but the way it defies categorization. Is it a scientific treatise disguised as fantasy, a religious vision encoded in botany? A hoax so meticulously crafted that it's fooled generations? The manuscript refuses to fit neatly into any box, and that's precisely what keeps us coming back. Look closer and you'll see how it bridges seemingly disconnected worlds. The illustrations marry medieval herbalism with celestial speculation, blending earthy roots with cosmic diagrams. The text, with its rhythmic repetitions, feels almost liturgical, as if the act of writing itself was a form of devotion. Even its materiality speaks volumes, the vellum's durability, the ink's resilience, hinting that this was meant to last, to outlive its creator and whisper across centuries. It's as much a time capsule as it is a cipher, preserving not just symbols but the very act of questioning. Perhaps the manuscript's greatest lesson is how it exposes the limits of human knowledge. We've sent probes to Mars and mapped the human genome, yet 600 years of scrutiny haven't cracked this handwritten book. It's humbling, a reminder that the past can guard its secrets fiercely. But it's also invigorating proof that wonder still exists in an age of algorithms and instant answers. The Voynich invites us to sit with uncertainty, to revel in the chase rather than the catch. So where do we go from here? The digital age has democratized the quest, letting anyone pore over high-resolution scans or test theories in online forums. Maybe the key lies in crowdsourcing, in some overlooked detail spotted by a curious high schooler halfway across the globe. Or perhaps AI, trained on ever-expanding linguistic datasets, will one day spot a pattern invisible to human eyes. But even if the code is broken, will we ever truly grasp the intent behind it? The manuscript's power isn't just in what it says, but in why it was created, and that's a language that might transcend translation altogether. As you close this chapter, consider this: the Voynich isn't just a puzzle to solve. It's a mirror reflecting our own hunger for meaning, our need to believe that every lock has a key. So dive into the rabbit hole, cross-reference its star charts with medieval astronomy, compare its plants to forgotten herbals, or simply lose yourself in its strange beauty. Because the real magic of the Voynich Manuscript isn't in the answers it might hold, it's in the questions that keep us coming back century after century, daring us to wonder, will we ever truly understand